voice of FinTech.
Welcome to Voice of FinTech Asia Pacific series. As in Voice of FinTech podcast so far, here you will hear inspirational stories of entrepreneurs, corporate innovators, investors, ecosystem hub leaders from or close to the world of FinTech. Asia Pacific series will be hosted by amazing hosts based in the region, speaking to the leaders from Asia Pacific. Here is another one hosted by Taneia.
Hi, I'm Taneia Bhardwaj, Head of Content and Thought Leadership at NIAM, and also your host for this episode. On the show today, we're chatting with Jitendra Gupta, two-time entrepreneur and active seed-stage fintech investor, and also the poster boy of India's startup success story. Hi, Jitendra. Thanks for taking the time out. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Tanya, and thanks for hosting me.
Great. I want to start by talking a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I don't know if you know, but in India, more often than not, you're sort of touted as the OG or the original gangster of digital payments innovation. You co-founded CitrusPay, a payments platform, in 2011 that was then acquired by Naspers-backed PayU almost 4 years ago in what was the largest cash exit for a payments company in India. Talk to us a little bit about, how your entrepreneurial journey really began.
Sure. So just to give a quick background on me, my first 8 years of career, I worked with ICICI Bank, and my last stint in the bank was mainly into payment strategy. And I think that's where I picked up the traits of the payments business. So I left the bank in 2010, and I was at home for 6 months. And literally, I was just reflecting upon what next for me, and I realized one day that payments is the best thing what I know, and that's how I looked at the market opportunity in terms of the market growth rates, how the growth rates are panned out in other markets like China or Brazil, and I realized that in India the growth trajectory is going to remain similar. The next 10 years, if I have to take a bet on this market, even though I may not become a significant player, but this market has enough room for a new digital payments player to operate. And so even at a small scale, I would be able to make a meaningful business. So that was the original plan or thought. But of course, your ambitions grow when you actually get into the business. So we literally jumped into the business with that thought.
I think what's also fascinating to me, when I read about your story, is that you built this tech company despite being a completely, non-techie. I'm curious to know what gave you the confidence to do that.
So Tanya, I must say it was not easy back then. Because I think one, it is your first time venture. You anyway have too many struggles to navigate through. And second, being a non-tech guy, the challenges were how to get tech guys on board. But I think one of the things which worked in my favor, I personally feel, was the background and experience I had in payments, and I knew exactly what problem to be solved for. So once you know that direction, then I think the only part which you need to solve for is getting the right person on board, and then it is a easier path once you have done the effort to get right person on board to work alongside and keep delivering the products to the market. So when I look back, I also wonder sometimes that how I navigated, frankly.
Yeah. But clearly, you're going to do this twice over. And that sort of is a good segue for me to then talk about, your latest venture, which is Jupiter, a neobank for millennials. How did this idea come to you? And, if you can, Jiten, maybe talk to us a little bit about what's the problem that Jupiter is really trying to solve.
So as I said, my background has been in financial services. And CitrusPay was a payments company. And post I joined PayU, I worked on launching a pay later product called Lazy Pay, which is nothing but a credit product. And after doing these two stints, I realized that both payments and lending are more transactional in nature. So consumers don't have affinity to these products. Like consumers don't build any relationships with these products. They're more they look at
Hmm.
more of these products from a transaction standpoint. So when I was considering a new idea, I was very sure that whatever next business I get into, I want to sort of have a business which is more relationship oriented business with the consumer. And in financial
Hmm.
services, if you look at it, banking is the only business where consumer form a relationship with the entity. So consumer park their money, and it's not like you change your bank every day. Like you might be changing your payment app every week, basis discount or offers and whatever, but you don't change your bank account every day.
Right.
And the second thing was that I this time I really wanted to create a business which is self-sustaining long term. And I think in financial services, banking is the ultimate place where everyone wants to be. But
Hmm.
but this is where you form a relationship with the consumer. This is where you create a large, sustainable, trusted entity. So that's how I got into digital banking side. Now, your second question is that what is that we are solving for? I think the
Hmm.
way I look at it today, when you look at the HNI customers, you have banks serving them very well, or wealth managers serving them very well by having a dedicated RM, and they do literally every job for those set of customers. But when you look at the young population or the young folks who just come into the job, they are least educated about financial topics. They are not so aware about what is the best way to invest, what is the best way to save, how should they meet their financial goals. So, in nutshell, today consumers' finances are really fragmented.
Hmm.
They look at investment as a separate topic. They look at lending as a separate topic. They look at bank account as a siloed entity. And I think which makes their finances very, very fragmented. And I saw the opportunity where I feel that consumers need a single view of their finances, so that ability to take decisions for their financial goals become much easier for consumers, and they're able to manage every part of the finance aspect at a single place. So that is the opportunity we saw. And the
Hmm.
second, I think there is a zero context from the existing banks towards their consumers. And I'm talking about these young consumers who are not HNIs. They keep average balance 50,000 or 100,000 rupees. So
Hmm.
these are most underserved customers by banks, because for bank, assigning a RM or doing a service like they provide to HNI customers doesn't add up from a cost structure standpoint.
Hmm.
So one of the idea which we want to do is provide a personalized and a contextual experience. Since the aggregation of finances is what we're going to do, we feel that we'll be able to do more personalized interaction. So think it like that. If today your bank keeps calling you for a credit card, despite you might be having credit card from the same bank earlier, right? So they don't have
Right.
so they,
Yeah.
they don't have any context to your financial life cycle, what data you have, what financial instruments you have, and whether you actually need credit card. They just try to push the products because somebody has given a target for them to meet. So they try to spam
Hmm.
all the consumers, whosoever they feel can be spammed. So I think those are the things which we want to
Right.
solve for when it comes to consumer offering.
Right. The other thing I noticed, and I think this is perhaps even one of the USPs of Jupiter, and that is co creation. I, for one, signed up and I'm on the wait list.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've noticed that you've got this really nifty, Trello board through which you're inviting the community to co create banking experiences. Honestly, that's unheard of. And the Trello board actually got me really excited. But I also want to know, why did you decide to take this approach? Why is co-creation so important to you? I think you kind of touched upon it in your, in your last answer, but I'm also interested to know what are some of the ideas and insights that you might have gained as a result of co-creation, which otherwise, were not on the table.
So, first of all, thank you for being on the list, and we'll ensure that you get the early access. But I think this co-creation has definitely been one of our key thesis, both inside the company as well as the way we are building our product. So many companies sort of boast about that we care about our consumers. We want we take consumer feedback, but in reality, there is no channel for such things to happen.
Hmm.
And when you look at banking, the structure of the banking today is where banks today push the products to the consumer without knowing what is relevant, not relevant for them. And we said that. What if before building the product ground up, why not we gather the feedback? And banking is all about transparency and trust. And if we sort of
Hmm.
gather the feedback from consumers that in a particular product, what are the things they like or they don't like, if we can leverage that while building the product, I think that could be a pretty unique experience which we can build. And pretty
Hmm.
relevant for the consumer. So that's where we invested our time and effort, and we take it very very seriously for the co-creation thing. Now your second question was that what are few of the things which we have come across from consumers. So
Hmm.
interestingly, few of the things which were more like we were operating on a intuitive basis or a hunch basis, but came out very very vocal and clear from consumers that consumers care about the security of their financial instrument. Consumers care about the rewards to be simple and transparent, and consumers care about the service to be more instant rather than ticket way of generating the ticket, then or being on the call center line for 5 minutes and all of that. And I think in banking, you see that is very, very
Hmm.
common. So few of the features which we picked up from this feedback is like one of the thing which we're gonna do is sleep card. So like when you actually you can snooze your card in the night. So while when
Hmm.
you go to sleep. So and you can set up a rule that every night from let's say 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. your card will be snoozed, so nobody can use the card. Similarly on the rewards,
Oh.
yeah. So similarly on the rewards,
Hmm.
we realize that the consumers don't expect all the fancy rewards per se. They have become smart, and they expect no nonsense, clear value of rewards rather than saying do this, then to apply this code, then go to this third party website, and then try and redeem. So I think
Right.
we are trying to simplify that part where every transaction you would know how much is rewards you made, what is the value of those rewards, and with a button you can redeem.
Hmm.
With a click you can redeem. Similarly on the service side, if you look at today's consumer expectation, I think Amazon and Swiggy kind of entities have spoiled the consumer for customer service, in my view.
Oh, for sure.
And expectation has been similar
Hmm.
now in every product consumer
Yeah.
uses. So we want to deliver the customer service experience similar or better than what they're used to for consumer businesses today. And banking is way
Hmm.
behind,
Yeah.
frankly. So that's what like the chat interfaces, real time resolution, or giving the service credits when they actually feel that they haven't made a mistake, rather than a banky way where you need to keep proving to your bank you did not make a mistake, it happened, and sort of give 10 arguments and win the
Hmm.
argument. I think that is not what we believe in. We will inherently trust the consumer because consumer is trusting us with their money. So we got to trust the consumer with their issues and complaints. So I think that's what the few of the ideas which we picked up from our community.
Jite, the other thing is there are neobanks and then there are digital only banks, right? Digital only, I mean, often the online only subsidiaries of, say, an established and regulated player in the banking sector. Take, for instance, the State Bank of India and what they're doing with their, product in India here. how do customers really distinguish between the two? Is there a need even to want to distinguish between the two? Or do you think somewhere, maybe the lines are also blurring?
So I think the neobanks is a terminology which media innovated
Mm-hmm.
in my view. So there is no such official terminology called neobank. I think is everything is a digital bank where you build up that digital only experience for the consumer banking per se. That being said, I think if you really want to differentiate between the neobank and a digital bank, the way you are
Mm-hmm.
asking me, the way I see is the neobank is an entity which is sort of building a digital bank on top of an existing bank without having the license. And a digital bank is a regulated entity which is already having a license and trying to launch or trying to offer consumers a mobile banking
Hmm.
experience. So that's how I see the differentiation. I think both models have their pros and cons. And what I mean by that is when a existing bank builds a digital bank, they still are colored or clouded by their thoughts in terms of what is possible, not possible, existing processes. They try to just put the customer experience layer on top of the existing
Hmm.
systems. And I think that's where the key issue remains to build new experiences ground up. While a neobanks today, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sort of reimagine every process, every interaction with the consumer ground up, and which means that building up the core systems also ground up rather than leveraging existing system. And I think that gives them fair amount of agility and flexibility to drive new experiences to the consumers.
Right. But, Jiten, one thing remains is that while, like you said, neobanks are sort of, trying to shake up the status quo, often seen as challengers to some of these high street banks. I think one big operational constraint in India is that the regulator doesn't grant virtual banking licenses. And so players like yourselves need the backing of a licensed entity. How do you see that sort of changing and catching up with, say, what we've seen in Europe, parts of the UK?
So I think the change is inevitable in my view. So you see the UK or Australia or now
Hmm.
Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Philippines kind of market. They have come out with the virtual banking licenses. And even if you look at the existing data points, like yesterday I was reading about the SBA chairman interview where he said that 91% of his transactions, SBI transactions are
Hmm.
happening digitally. Or even HDFC annual report last year, if you read, it says that 85% of the transactions are happening digitally. Now, the time has changed where the RBI made these guidelines 15 years back, where the digital adoption was very low. So there was a need for branches, there was need for offices, service points, and all of that. Now the customers have become
Hmm.
digital native thanks to geo and internet access, which is available. And now thanks to COVID, I would say, where people have realized that everything can be
Hmm.
done digitally. So I think sooner or later, I expect our regulator also to move into similar direction. What other regulators have moved, because every data point related to our digital adoption, as well as the need of the ask from the consumer, does not warrant a branch as a mandatory
Hmm.
requirement.
Right. That's on the regulation part. What about adoption in India? Because again, neobanks are a sort of nascent idea in India. They remain a favorite clearly with venture capitalists. And like you said, COVID to some extent may have really fast forwarded the digital adoption. But what are you sort of picking up from, consumers on the ground? Are they just as enthused, to kind of adopt neobanks?
So before I comment on banking, the consumer behavior is
Hmm.
is a very different. So they do not necessarily operate with the rationale of neobank versus regular bank and all. And in any product line, what tends to happen is there are these traditional brands which have been there since ages, and
Hmm.
consumers sort of are used to using them. But when a new challenger brand comes up, consumers want to try that. Consumer wants to feel that, and the reason that happens because there is a fatigueness from an existing brand, and I think that is a consumer psychology, which is what you also
Hmm.
call a brand psychology, right? And I think that is the same thing I'm seeing in the banking. While there are challenges in the existing banking system, there are things which can be fixed or improved on. But I think that the wave is more on count of I'm tired of my existing bank and I want to get a brand which understands my needs, which addresses my concern, or which gives me a similar experience what a new age internet company provides. So I think that so I see a clear
Hmm.
market opportunity for new experience to be delivered to the consumer, and I see and I expect consumers to adopt it. Of course, which kind of consumers will adopt it? In my view, consumers who will adopt it typically will be very savvy consumers who are like on Snapchat,
Hmm.
Instagram, WhatsApp all the time. Typically below a age group of 35, because those are the consumers
Hmm.
who want to try new products anyway.
I also want to get one question in on, the fintech landscape, so to speak. As an active seed stage investor in the Indian startup space, especially fintech, what are some of the trends that you've seen emerge?
So, one of the biggest trend which I'm seeing right now
Hmm.
is on the SME side, where you saw like all the shopkeepers, mom and pop stores used to keep this physical book to write whom they have to collect money and whom they have to pay, which is we in
Hmm.
a traditional word we call khata. So entities like khata book and all are gaining big traction. Similarly, there is this issue because of COVID. Now the mom and pop stores are realizing that they cannot keep on coordinating with customer over WhatsApp. They want something which can be where the catalog can be made quickly without having to go through a Shopify experience or a website making experience. So how can they create a digital store in literally like
Hmm.
15-30 seconds or something like that? So you see these apps like My Dukaan and all
Right.
suddenly getting huge traction. And then these SMEs also are adopting the QR way of payment because the terminals were not present in a vast majority. So there were always these guys never accepted digital payments either because of the cost of the terminal or
Hmm.
the MDR issues and all. Now with the QR payments and UPI becoming free to accept, we are seeing a lot of the digital payment adoption in the SME side. I think on the consumer side, if you ask me, one of the big trend I see is or things happening around is the wealth space, where your investments, your stock trading, or how do you sort of save for your goals. So a lot of companies are coming in this space, as well as they are solidifying their position by expanding the breadth of portfolio. So these are the few trends which I'm seeing right now happening in the industry.
Great. Thank you so much, Jiten, for speaking with us. Just before we wrap up, if someone would like to reach out to you to, learn more about Jupiter, what's the best way to do so?
So my LinkedIn inbox is the best way. So you write to me on LinkedIn and I respond same day.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much then for taking the time and best of luck with your venture.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Thanks for this interview. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Voice of Fintech podcast. If you haven't already, check out also voiceoffintech.com, where you will find all the episodes and additional resources related to the podcast. You can also subscribe to Voice of Fintech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any other podcast app that you like. If you have any suggestions on the topics or guests, or how to make this podcast better for you, please email us at info@voiceoffintech.com. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.